Here we're asked to graph at least 2 cycles of each of the following trig functions. So for the first one here, what I'm looking at before I even get started is the fact that it is a negative sign graph. What I should know about negative sign graphs is that they start at the midline and then they go down first because it is negative. Since I'm doing 2 cycles, I should really repeat that process. And again, we end at the exact same spot that we started because that's where it starts to repeat. Because technically these graphs, end up going on forever, but we're really just graphing 2 pieces. So from there, the first thing I do is I look at where is the midline going to be. And that is told by my k value, or the number that's on the outside here. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There is my midline. And after that, I look for what is the amplitude. Amplitude is the number, or the a value, which is the number in front of the sine or cosine. In this case, it's -1. The negative is what tells me, what the shape is going to look like or how I'm starting it. But the 1 tells me how much I'm going to go up or down from the midline to get to my maximum value or my minimum value. So my whole graph is going to be between those 3 dashed lines. So from there, I look for my h and b values on the inside of the sine function. Since there's no adding or subtracting, it means that I am not going anywhere to the left or to the right. What that means is that I know I'm going to start my first point here at 0, at x equals 0. Since there's no b value, the number in front of x here, the b value usually tells me the period, which is 2 pi divided by b. In this case, since b is 1, my period is just 2 pi. So that means that's where I'm starting to repeat. So I know that I'm also going to have a point at the midline at 2 pi. And I'm also going to mark 4 pi because, remember, I'm doing 2 cycles. So from here, now I'm just finding halfway points. So I know the halfway point between 0 and 2 pi is pi. Halfway point between 2 pi and 4 pi is 3 pi. And again, just from my general shape up here, the halfway marks are at the midline also. Then halfway between those, I got pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4, 5 pi over 2, 6, 7 pi over 2. Now these ones again are marked because if I look back at my original drawing here, I started by going down to the minimum first. So that's where I got my point at pi over 2. Then midline and then maximum, midline, minimum, midline, maximum. So my final graph here should look something like this. There's my first cycle, and there's my second cycle. So for the second one here, if I'm dealing with cosine, let's move over just a little bit here. Oops. And since I'm doing a negative cosine graph, I know that I'm going to be starting at the minimum, just from basic knowledge of cosine and sine graphs. I'm doing 2 cycles, so my final graph should look like this. If it doesn't look like that, I made a mistake somewhere. Okay, so first, where is my midline? Well, there's no k value. It's not adding anything at the end here, so that means that my midline is just going to be at 0. My a value, which tells me the amplitude, is -3. Negative is why I'm going to start at the minimum. The 3 is telling me I'm going to go up 1, 2, and 3, down 1, 2, and 3. That gives me my minimum and my maximum. My h value, still nothing. I'm not shifting left or right. No phase shift, meaning I know I'm going to start my graph at the minimum and at 0. My b value now, though, is pi over 5. So 2 pi divided by b is the same thing as 2 pi times 5 over pi, which these cancel and just give me 10. So that is my period. That's going to be 20. And so I know it's a little bit squeezed here. Let me just extend that a little bit more. And so from here, I know that I'm going to be at the minimum again because that's where it starts to repeat. Now I got to find my halfway mark. So halfway is 5 and 15, which gives me the maximums. Again, I'm going off of my original what I know of the shape. Then I go halfway points again, 2.5, 7.5, 12.5, and 17.5. Those middle values land on the midline. And when I connect all these points, you should see the familiar shape of it's going up and then back down. First cycle and second cycle. So yes, it looks like this up here. So it seems like we are good to go.